Welcome, everyone. On behalf of all the members of the Y2Y Network, I'd like to welcome Nancy Ingram, our guest for today's podcast on how to leverage the newly created campus clubs to help us achieve the wider goals we've set out for ourselves for the Y2Y Network. Nancy, thanks so much for joining us.
It's a pleasure.
Over the course of the next couple of months, many members of the Youth Network will be actively trying to establish campus mind action clubs. Based on your own experience, what are some of the steps that really need to happen that can sometimes be overlooked in all the excitement of creating something brand new?
I'm not sure if it's a step, but I find in our experience where some people get a little stuck or they get a little overwhelmed is wanting to have a big operating club right away. And I guess one thing I would encourage you is that whether your club has 50 people in it or 3 people in it, as long as you have somebody with you out there generating some education and action on the issue, you are in fact doing something. So I guess don't be disheartened if you don't have 50 people sign up the first day. If you think back to how the movements to ban landmines and cluster bombs started, it started with a really small group of individuals in a room that just decided they were concerned about something and they were going to start talking to other people about it. And I guess I would ask you to keep that in mind when you start your clubs, that that's how change happened. Happened with a very small group of people deciding to get active about something.
Thanks so much, Nancy. In the January plan of action that was sent out to everyone, we talked about what needs to happen to recruit new members and to get a club off the ground. What might be harder is to keep your newly recruited people active in the club. It's tough because you don't want to give someone too much responsibility right away, but you also don't want them getting bored or feeling like their talents are not being used properly. How do you find the right balance?
That's a really good question, and I think that is a common kind of obstacle that volunteer groups face. A couple of things come to mind. Probably the first thing I would do is be really clear about what the club is for and maybe what the goals are for the year, just when you're advertising it. So it's very clear what people might be getting into. I think maybe that's the first proactive step you can take. Now, in this context, you all are members of our Youth to Youth Network. And we do have a plan of action, and we have different targets we want to reach. Like, we want to give a Mine Action Legacy over in Cambodia at the next Youth Leaders Forum. So we know that we are all, in some way, fundraising as much as we can so that we can do that presentation in Cambodia. We also know globally that we'd like to have 1 million people's treaty signatures to hand over in Lebanon at the meeting of states parties for the cluster convention. So already we have a framework for some clear, tangible actions. And I think that just needs to be clear. It's not the only thing your club has to do, but hopefully we're all working in the same direction. The other thing I would probably suggest is when you have your first club meeting or your first couple of meetings, is to kind of talk about this global framework, but then ask people what interested them in joining these clubs, what their expectations are in terms of events or even level of investment. Is this a person that wants to commit 30 minutes a week? Or is this somebody that has more time and wants to run with the whole event? And I think that's really important to know. And I think there's room for all of those people in your club. I think where clubs get into problems is when the expectations of everybody involved aren't clear. So I'm running an event, I'm willing to dedicate a week of my time, but I'm the only one working on it. Then there's a problem with expectations. So when people sign up for a club, ask them what they expect and what they have to invest. And I do think with our Youth to Youth Network actions, we can accommodate or give you ideas for all sorts of people's level of investment, whether they want to commit 5 minutes or whether they want to commit, half a day a week. I think all of that can be accommodated.
Right. That was fantastic, Nancy. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, I'm just thinking that given that we do have these larger global goals, and I do think that one thing that people might be attracted to in coming to your club is that it's not just a university club. These people will become part of this international, active, vibrant network, and there are international opportunities available, like the Youth Leaders Forum. So I think about why people are coming to your club. But so even though we have some larger goals that hopefully we're all contributing to, on the international stage, I think another thing you can do to find that balance is, okay, even if the what that you're doing has been kind of largely laid out based on our actions and our global goals, where there is room for people to take ownership is in the how. So, like for example, if you're we know we're trying to collect people's treaty signatures this month, where you could give over creativity and give over power and some freedom is charging different members or asking the group how they want to do this. Do they want to partner with other clubs? Do they want to do a public stunt? And I think that way you can find a balance with the what you have to do with how you do it. And I think I would encourage your members to be as creative as possible with that.
Thanks so much. That was fantastic, Nancy. So each member of the Youth Network is really trying to find their own way to get people engaged with this effort. If you were faced with the same task, what would be some of the steps that you would take right away to help make this happen?
Well, probably the first thing I would do is I would talk to people in my own network, my friends, my family, my contacts. A really easy and usually solid way to start building a club or a network is to start talking to the people who already know you, who already like you, who you have a relationship with, who might be interested in what you're doing and why you're interested. I know for me, a lot of my friends and families may not have been interested in the issue of landmines and cluster bombs, but they became interested when they saw how important it was to me. And because they were interested in something that was important to me, they became educated and a little bit active on the issue. So I guess my first kind of suggestion would be to start with who and what you know and look in your networks. Are there professors in your schools that might be open to this type of issue, depending on their area of interest, depending on conversations you have? Are there some like minded people in your network of friends that might want to kind of help you start something novel and new at your university? From there, I would start going out and talking to people maybe a little further from my network, people that may not know me, they may not know my friends that are in the network, but they might be interested in the issue. And for that, you can attack that in a couple of ways. You can do a public stunt. So some type, it could be street theater, it could be a protest, it could be an art exhibition, something that people might get there, you might stop, look at, get their attention, and then you and your club members could engage them in conversation. You could also give a lecture or have a display in an area where there's a lot of traffic. But I would say that in my experience, the rule of thumb is to start with the people who know you, who trust you, and start from there and then work out to the wider audience.